Well, hello everyone. I'm going to do a little different podcast today as it's an interesting day today. We have a few guest hosts. One is my dog Dauber, as I've done my AgTech dog walks before, but it rained, so I cannot walk them today. It's a little too muddy. So I decided to do something different. I just dropped off my boy at daycare, so I got one co-host here, and I got my other buddy. Buddy, can you say hi? There he is. He's a little outside of the camera mark here. Um, there, back to normal. Good enough, I think. Anyways, so today is also special because there is a few other people coming to visit my area of the world. One being someone that's been around before, our one of our senators, John Hoeven. He's bringing a distinguished guest to the Grand Farm, which I live, what is it, 5 miles away. Camera there a little bit. And I'm going to drive to it. And we're going to drive just nearby it because why not? Kind of tell a story. So the Secretary of Ag, Brooke Rollins, is visiting today at the Grand Farm and in the Fargo area. So I thought, well, I'll kind of do a little showcase of the area, and we can talk about why the heck they're here. It's probably pretty obvious. Just on a tour of the U.S. talking about ag, and there's clearly a lot of concerns around it, especially with the tariffs and trading shifts, if you want to call it. Um, the grain markets are what they are, and honestly, it's hard to say where they're going to go with all this stuff. But some of the prices are actually not that bad right now, as they I wouldn't even say were. Their markets, there's a lot of things that impact them. Weather is a big one. Sure, that the tariffs are going to cause some issues. So, they're trying to quell some fears, I suppose. And North Dakota's kind of rare too, as we share one of the biggest borders with Canada, and we probably trade the most commodities with Canada, um, up and down, and then other products. As we, you know, there's a lot of things that go back and forth, and the other borders are maybe a little more secluded, not as much population near them. So North Dakota is very unique in trading with Canada, and we farm very similar too in the Northern Plains to say Western Canada. So a lot of similarities, a lot of that going on. But anyways, I'm outside of Castleton, North Dakota. I live in Wheatland, North Dakota, where the address of the Grand Farm actually is. I'm getting closer to it. And yeah, they're coming here at a little later today, from what I found out, and then but it's an invite only. I wasn't, at least so far, wasn't high enough on the list to garner that attention, and I'll be frank. Considering it's a ag tech technology demonstration, someone that literally lives right nearby and is known in the community, and I might have my appropriately cynical skeptic realist ways that some people don't seem to always well, I'd say a lot of people enjoy them. It's just, I might bring up some odd things, so maybe there's some people scared that I might say the wrong things or ask the wrong questions. I don't know. But we're gonna drive out there. I'm not gonna go into the building. All that was kind of show some videos of it, and I don't think anyone's out there now, anyways. At least our distinguished guests aren't. So, but for the people that haven't seen it, I figured, hey, I'll go around and show it a little bit and see what people think. So that's what I'm gonna do. So can't see it. Well, I'm right off the interstate. I'll maybe kind of just show to the side here. My shot of the dogs. So you can see the building over there. That is the Grand Farm, and there it is. And we're in the middle of the country, so as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on. Um, it just rained, so I don't know what they're going to do for technology demonstration per se. But you know what? Shit happens. That's agriculture. It rains. I'm guessing they'll drive some autonomous something or other, and that's what they'll do. But there's, was it 2 quarters where they've put up a bunch of plots, and nothing's been planted yet. Some tillage has maybe been happening. And you can kind of see there's some drain tile and a place to put. Yeah, got some ducks out there even. So there's the building. Um, Nice setup, an area for community to join in, and then got a little staging area. They're planning a lot more out here, so there is no shortage of expansion. And they got some certain, you know, modern agriculture stuff here. Some cell tower, weather stations. Anyways, so I guess we'll see what Miss Rollins has to think about this all today. It's kind of exciting, and I'm not here to try to put some crazy political message to it. Just want to showcase what we're doing around here, kind of the area I live. So we got I'm guessing they're gonna drive that autonomously. I'm just assuming, and then there's some other smaller equipment, but shop there brings in some things to test. But anyways, yeah, that's the Grand Farm in the grand scheme of things. The idea of it showcasing different technologies and things of that nature, and try to get people to think of new ways to administer tech and ag. And this site it's now a second year open. In various meetings and things. There was even a agriculture committee meeting. Hogan, I think, is the lead of it, and then Amy Klobuchar was here as well. Like somebody. Anyways, it's North Dakota. There's tons of ag going on, tons of stuff. Well, now my dogs are getting antsy. It's okay, Dauber. It'll be fine. But part of the thing I hope, at least from this visit, which I'm gonna try to put this up here this morning, is what's really going on in ag and how can tech help. And I hope the people that were invited to the various pieces. Here, go back to Albert. I'll open the window for you. Now they just need sniffs. There we go. Now they're fine. I'll drive in the country a little bit. Will they get the right message? And I'm hopeful. What I worry about a little bit is tech will get sugar coated a little bit in a way that doesn't talk about the tough parts of it and why it can be a little difficult at times, why we've had some of the adoption issues we've had, why some of the money that has been raised hasn't quite been utilized well, why there's been a little overhype. I mean, it's going to happen. Even testing farm like over here is there's testing some things that are maybe a little, you could say, either ahead of their time or that are maybe not as practical right now. It's not saying they can't be. There are plenty of technologies that are in the early stages, and people are still trying to figure out what that means. And but things are tight in the ag tech space. There is no shortage of that understanding. A lot of investment is dried up, with the uncertainty in ag. It's hard to know where people invest and how they invest within it. I've got my plenty ideas. There's other people that have more. So I'm hoping, like I said, the people that are going to be around her today that understand some other parts of tech and ag figure out a good way to demonstrate that to her so she can see where money and research and funds need to go. And one of those areas, which is very important, is just kind of the digitization of the USDA itself. They've had a problem for ever kind of. I mean, they've done efforts that were appropriate for the time. And I've talked about the CLUs, field boundaries, that are common land units that are used. They are, they are the fields that are drawn. And up here, they're pretty good because it's big, squared, and flat. Other areas, Iowa, Idaho. It's not great because of reasons and pills and stuff. It kind of depend on the person. Some were done by GPS, most were done by hand drawing on a GIS software like Esri or stuff like that, which is fine. We'll still do that today in many of the systems. So, but that process needs to be rethought. How farmers' data, digital data gets into the USDA for reporting needs to change. There's efforts from various groups that are trying to push that off. Even my old work alma mater, to a point, my ag data, they're trying to get that going. They're a key part. There's other areas that I've been in talks with to help get data more accessible to agriculture and newer methods. I recently talked to the director of agriculture for NASA about this, and he thinks and wants to help more, which is great. I mean, they have the NASA Harvest and the other one, which I can't think of off the top of my head. They're trying things, and the USDA is aware of some of these things. I've talked to one of the former directors with one of the FSA agency of the last Trump administration around this last year, and now he's I think a new deputy secretary. I don't think it's been confirmed in, so I'll hide names for now. But we had a great conversation on that. There seems to be a want to redigitize maybe, or whatever you want to call it, the USDA. Now, there's been processes in the past to try to help in this. One was called the Midas Project. Like, Gold Midas. I think that's how it was pronounced. Acronyms in the government, you never know. But it was basically a software to kind of unify all the USDA agencies. For example, their crop layers. RMA had a different crop list. NRCS had a different crop list. FSA had a different crop list. One had like 150 some, one had like 140, and one had like 160. Well, kind of need to standardize and unify that within the entire agency, and how that wasn't a thing to begin with is shocking to me. But government stuff, I won't even get into that. That project went on, and I remember when kind of the starts of it were when I first got into crop insurance, and was that 2011 or 12, and sounded great. And then there was this other process coming up called accuracy, automated acreage reporting, something system, basically so that instead of the FSA reporting its stuff from farmers, and then farmers also having to go to their crop insurance agents to report, and for the FSA and agents to kind of have to cohabitate separately, it was a process to it's like a loop transfer. It's like if it goes to the FSA first, oh, it comes over to the RMA side where agents can see it and AIPs that administer crop insurance, multi-peril crop insurance, or if it went to the agent first, it would kind of loop around and get to the FSA. So attempts have been made. Unfortunately, the the Midas project went insanely over budget and didn't really pan out and work. I don't know exactly where it sits right now. From what I was told, uh, well, initially they allocated a couple hundred million to build it out, which is insane in its own right. But I get it for a government thing at the time. It ballooned over budget, over $1 billion, and last number I heard, it was actually over $4 billion spent on a software system that they don't really use and is not utilized. So if you want some government efficiency to be done, maybe we need to change that process. Just saying. As for accuracy to help with the reporting process to digitize that, maybe streamline it really. Yeah, that streamlined is in the automated accurate reporting. I'm murdering it anyways. That hasn't been well received. There's been issues and glitches. Part of the problem was a fear by agents that farmers wouldn't go to them for their acreage reporting. They would just go to the FSA and do it. And then because of that, their commissions would get cut. That's one thing that's always on the docket when it comes to uh, budgets within crop insurance is agent commissions. I think it hovers around 8% right now and can go a little higher depending on some other features. Other people smarter than me can chime in on that. Well, there's been attempts to cut that, and there probably in this next farm bill is going to be attempts to cut that part of it because they want to redigitize things. Now, how that'll all work, I don't know. There's lobbyists that are involved in that. CIPA, CIPA. They are a lobbying group that has been critical of these things. Although some are for it. Personally, myself, I think agents can own accuracy, and I think they can drive. I think crop insurance can drive digital adoption in all of agriculture, and it needs to be digitized more. It's trying. It's a public-private partnership between the AIPs and the RMA with that, which honestly, in some realm, I think can be a model for how digital data can be brought into the USDA more efficiently. They're not perfect, but having some version of a private partnership is helpful because it can help kind of get around the latency and even around the weird governmental red tape that is, we all know is associated with that world. And, we got to try something different. There's clearly a want to switch up things within the USDA. That is apparent. Like I said, talking to former leaders within it, and even some recent conversations. Yeah, there's a want, there's a need. They need to do it. Now, of course, the problem is the government itself and just how it handles anything. Only a controversy and uncertainty right now, so it muddies the water. But I think crop insurance could help own the process And a big reason for that could be a drive for incentive. Maybe if you report all your stuff digitally through some sort of API connection system, the reality will be you get a insurance premium cut, or if you do prove certain regenerative or conservation practices through digital means. Some of that kind of exists right now, but it needs to be better. Um, you get an extra incentive of payment, over what it normally would be. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to handle that, but we create enough data. It seems there's a problem of cleaning it up. Making sure, okay, farmer might be out here planting, next week, which there will be. The problem is they might have the systems set up, you know, some of the systems that are, tested at the Grand Farm and other places. But, the moment rain's coming, some of those files aren't quite clicking the way they should. The variable rate system and service that you paid for, that file, it's not working right for whatever reason. You just got to get the stuff in the ground because the rain's coming or whatever. That's really part of the problem here. It's not necessarily um, always about, oh, you know, this software system doesn't work as well, or this tool or not. I mean, some of these things have been around for decades. I mean, literally, I've been in it for 30 years. Things have been around for 30 years, over that actually. Um, those are other issues. And those things need to be addressed. And those are the things I hope in uh, Secretary Rollins' visit here that those things get brought up. Like, hey, there are some realities of these things not working. Hey, these things, attempts within the past, within the USDA and connected forces, is a novel idea, but it needs to be better. Um, but then there's all this other fear, like I was talking about, of, FSA office closing and jobs being cut. Well, here's the stark reality to that I don't think's told enough. The USDA needs to digitize regardless. The way AG's going and everything, it needs better records. It needs more accuracy in general, all across the board, because there's a lot of wasted money. Just the COUs I've talked about, they're off 3 to 5% on average everywhere. Some areas are better, like I said here. And they're over an acreage. That you add those dollars up, you're talking billions of dollars over time, if not per year. When you combine just, you take, what is it, called $10 billion program, and you take 5%, if it's just the acres part, and just on the direct payments, you're talking $500 million. That's a ton. It is. I mean, clearly. Now you're not going to get perfect. You're just not. And you're not going to get rid of the CLUs, but there are ways to incentivize to make that better, and it wouldn't cost that much. It'd save hundreds of millions for sure. And then, of course, you put that acreage in context with, insurance payments, from a loss or a claim. That matters too. Those acres change and add up. And that creates this extra burden. So, and then it creates more, paperwork to deal with. Then you need more physical people. Well, we know where the world's going between just normal stuff that's been around, the internet and basic farm management software. Digital records exist. They can get in from one place to another. Sure, it always needs work. New processes can happen, but something, it's there, it exists. You bring in AI with things, you can start doing this at scale faster. The real reason they're wanting to eliminate positions within the USDA is because of that because you just don't need as many people to do the same job. Now, could it be handled a little differently? Yes, I will say that, but it's an eventuality. Then you add the fact in that I've heard anywhere from it's basically 50% of the entire workforce of the USDA is going to retire in the next 10 years. That number could be higher in the shorter term. You know, I don't know. I'm not going through the statistics on that. Someone can chime in there. But there's nobody to replace those people. People don't want to, that's not a real career path that younger people are following. They're just not. They're not even following ag in general for jobs for the most part. There's a giant shortage of labor in agriculture. It's declining the amount of people that are coming into it. That trend is not changing. So you need to digitize to make it more efficient. You don't need as many people. Is this a way to kind of force that? From what I garnered, yes, that is. Sometimes you gotta, you know, cut things off at the head to stop and, burn it and singe it to keep it away from bleeding. Uh, that's important. And two, to do it, to get it done. If you try to put these in committees and talk through it, nothing happens. That's what's been happening. And what's interesting from what I've learned is there is actually somewhat, or was at least, a kind of bipartisan approach at reducing some of these things with the USDA, make it more efficient. Um, why it doesn't happen is politics and typical bureaucracy, but there seems to be a want somewhere. There's a known truth, and then you add the fact of, there's just not being as many people. And from what I've heard recently as well is, for the first time in a long, long time, maybe really ever, or in decades, there is now an interest by many people within all the different USDA agencies to look at some new stuff. Like they see the writing on the wall. They know the people that have been pushing papers. Just there's a lot of that. That that era is going away. It's been going away for years. It's just government systems, some are old and they're antiquated and they take time and they take a lot of money and processes to change. Um, so while the process of how it's going is left to be desired by many, it needs to happen to some degree. Um, Maybe this is the only way, is to kind of just cut it and figure something else. Force oneself to figure it out. I'm really curious how the talks just up here will go. I'm sure there's not going to be a ton on the stuff I'm talking about on digitizing USDA and how that affects other things. I mean, if people want healthier, more traceable food, this coincides with that. If they want to change the SNAP program so that less junk food is there, more healthy food, you need better data to, create more with less, and trace it and make sure it's all safe and healthy and that people, what they're buying, they know is actually healthy for them. Yeah, things can be changed there. There's little denying it. Um, Most of the talks, though, I'm sure today will be around, trade and tariffs, which clearly are important because if we wreck our import and export markets, it'll decimate rural America. Um, as I said earlier, North Dakota relies a lot on that. And it's energy too. It's other things that we make from agriculture products. There's a lot of called mini CPGs in this state, and we're not just two crops. We're not corn and beans. We are 30 plus different staple crops. Right next to me, sugar beet field from last year. Of course, there's wheat and corn and beans. There's food grade soybeans. There's edible beans. There's 8 different types of edible beans. Sunflowers, oils, and confectioners. Big uh, oil plant for sunflowers right this way to the west. Right where I was at by the Grand Farm, there's an ethanol plant. And then there's a new soybean crushing plant, which does help. I'll say this. From the last tariff issues, um, that soybean crushing plant is there kind of because of that. And then there's another one to the west, 50 miles. Because North Dakota exports like almost all of its soybeans because we didn't have plants to do something with. And after the tariff thing, it affected farmers a lot. And our basis is higher too for travel expenses because we are literally in the center of North America. Sure, there's rail cars and there's, Duluth, which is a little east of us, which you can get on the lakes, but most stuff goes west. I live right next to the two train tracks that transport like there's actually three, one splits off, three train tracks that literally move like 95% of all grain to ports for export. That's not done here. That's not produced here into some product. I live in the town nearby. There's a pasta plant. They are making pastas for all sorts of places. There's an edible bean plant in town that's processing that and selling that for, you know, getting it ready to give to Frito-Lay so they can turn into bean dip. All these things can be tied together within the process between ag production and food production. And while digital data is used, it needs to be better. It is not good enough. We've, we've always claimed here in the U.S. at least that, we have the best quality this. It's like, well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. Some aspects, yeah, we do. Because there's good, safe regulations in place. But because of some of these changes, is that going to force other countries to up their game to produce more? Is that going to bring investment? Say, yeah, we don't trust the U.S. and there's a shift every 4 years of things, and then X, Y, Z, a major shift, not minor shifts, like there's always been major shifts. Is this kind of the future? Because that brings uncertainty, and then things need to change. And while there's this thought that yeah, we have to do some tough decisions and sacrifice a little right away. Okay, the people that make those decisions, they can maybe sit idly in their offices and chairs or, you know, boardrooms when it's in small communities I live in and grew up in, or have friends and family that are doing these things, they're impacted. And I can tell you this, just from issues from the 80s, from, decisions, political decisions, trade decisions, things like that. I mean, it killed farms. Once it happened, they went away. They didn't come back because things got better. Did things get better? Yeah. And actually Farm Bill got better, better protections. Those were good, but the damage was done. It it slowly killed small communities, and ag is the lifeline to small rural communities. It If you have more people, you have other services, more banks and restaurants, and more people in schools, more teachers, XYZ. Everyone understands basic economics, I think. What are we risking? What are we sacrificing here? Because those things take time, and sometimes rural America's you can't just turn a switch. And that's the worry. I hope that is addressed and understood by traveling to a place like where I was. And while technology can be a shining light, potentially for a lot of the inefficiencies within our antiquated agricultural process, um, what does that what does it also do? Robotics is cool, but that takes away a job inherently, but then maybe the job's not there. Person's not there anyways. What do you do? There's this balancing argument of it. I don't have the exact answer because well, I'm not in a powerful enough position to be invited to a place where I can express these opinions. So here I am on here, and I'm going to put it out today. So hopefully, while people are visiting this, they see it and they're like, "Oh, hey, Nathan brought up a good point. Maybe I want to bring that up to John Hoven or Secretary Rollins or something, or someone that can influence them later down the line." I don't have all the answers, but I want them to do their jobs and do well at it. That's kind of the point. They are government officials that are paid for by our taxes, and that's all the hope is. Just do the jobs that were given to you. Support the people that do these things. Try to be uh, not partisan around it, and think of the programs and how they work and how they help, how they could be improved, um, physically and digitally, and make sure that we still have a strong market to sell the goods. They are commodities. That's a different process. Um, and you know, we need to make sure these things are known, because if we don't, then assumptions are made. Perception is used to try to make decisions. Um, and that's dangerous. It, we need perspective on how these things work. And while there are plenty of government people that do know how these things work, might be a brain drain too, and a fast one. And maybe those people are going to private industry and they'll help in that way. I mean, some version of private and public partnership, more of it within the ag side of things with the USDA would probably be okay, like I said. But we gotta be really careful there too. Um, it's hard for small groups to make and be involved in those big items, and you get big corporates in there that have their interests and their stockholders that can push certain narratives that aren't always great for rural America and for a small farmer and even large farmers. Just got to be really, really careful, because the flyover states are depending on it. And this goes out, like I said, I'm not trying to pick sides here, but yeah, there's issues from all sides. Some want everything to be organic, which is just not possible. Logistics and everything and how things work. Sorry. Not everything can be as regenerative as people want. Not everything can be as conservation as people want. There are elements that can be better, but the soils around me are these, they're heavy clay soils. They are very tough to no-till. That actually probably be better for organic, because you can kind of till the crap out of them, and they do pretty much stay around. Um, but in certain areas, it doesn't work as well. They're drier, sandier, different loams, different weather patterns, climate patterns. And those are always changing. While digital tech and policy can help shape good things in ag to happen, at the end of the day, it's was it it's the weather, man. I mean, it's frickin' weather. Did it rain enough? Enough sun? Was it dry enough at the right times? The balance of that, and that shapes the markets. It's really the weather and the markets, and it's a reason why AgTech has not been at the forefront, because while it can incrementally help a lot of little things, the swings between markets and weather, that's it's easily, in itself, it's 95% of what happens. Uh, that one change in how you market your crop can be a difference of 50% of your net and gross profits. And that determines, how you succeed. And then all that needs to be protected. Crop insurance, all programs, all these things are important, but you can't overutilize them either, because, we need to find ways to be self-sufficient in how we farm and not farm subsidies, not just be paid off because mistakes were made that are not weather related or market related. We need sound practices that are sustainable. And I don't mean like just sustainable in how something's grown. I mean sustainable in how things are managed. They tie in with each other. So anyways, while I went a little farther today and went a little different route, I hope you got to see the Grand Farm. Go look it up. They're doing some cool things there. They can do more. I was really hoping with the visits today, it seems, invite only was the case, and I get that. Security, and you don't want thousands of people showing up. Today would have been kind of crazy is, it rained. Local farmers aren't in the field right now. They probably would have came out. I really wish there would have been more of a public forum. I think the farmers deserve that, especially when someone like the Secretary of Agriculture is coming to town and doesn't get here that often. That's their job, to talk to the farmers they are to support. So while the special people and I suppose certain farmers will be involved, they are. The general public should be too, because it's not just farmers too. It's rural communities like the one I live in, and that's important too. They deserve a voice. I hope their voice is heard today, where it's needed. I am a little skeptical. I fear that things will be sugar-coated a little bit. I hope I'm wrong. So for anyone who's listening, do your job if you're around them, because that's your job too, is for us to speak our voice and explain how these things work and why they work, and try to make sure ag works for all, beyond just farmers, but for the businesses around them, the businesses that support them, the small rural communities and schools that depend on farming in the community to work. If these things collapse, a lot of other bad shit happens. A lot of other stuff. And this is always the case. So we have to be pragmatic, push the right buttons, say the right things, make sure our officials do the right things and are educated and have the right knowledge to figure it out, and push the right policies and push the right rhetoric. That's their job. So if you're in those positions, do that. It's pretty common logic. That's kind of how it works. And hey, even these guys matter, because part of food production is dog food, which is what this one's whining about right now. Is he wants his food. See? Yeah, Dauber, you want ag production to be good so you get your food, so it's good and healthy for you, right, bud? And then Buddy wants it too. He's like, yeah, I want it too. I want good food. See? It's not just about the people, it's about the dogs too, and the other animals. So, and the vets, and cattle and animals, everything. I know this one a little longer today, but a little different take, a little informative. Let me know what you think. I'm open to doing it more this way too. And who doesn't like a beautiful Australian Shepherd, an English Shepherd? you know, pretty cute. I'm a little scruffy on the edges, so at least you get them. I guess thanks for driving with me. I'll have to do this more often, but I'm gonna get this posted right away and we'll go from there. See you next time, everyone. Thanks for listening.